You're listening to the VTZone.com's weekly Scoutcast. Everything Hokies. And now here's publisher Jason Stamm.
Welcome to another edition of the VTZone.com's weekly Scoutcast. I am publisher Jason Stamm. Coming to you, we've completed now 3 weeks in the books. So, Doug, as hard as it is to believe, we are a quarter of the way through. I got our main man, Doug Bowman. Unfortunately, Derek Skip Hopkins couldn't make it through, but I think between me and Doug, we got this hopefully under wraps this week.
We hope so. I mean, Skip must be sleeping or something.
I know, he's ragging on you all the time for sleeping. Of course, we always record these, or you've kind of gotten to where we record these on Sunday night. I hope Skip's not sleeping. He'd really be going back against his word there, I think, if he was sleeping at this time.
That would be a bit hypocritical, I think.
All right, we'll try not to rag on him too bad for not being on here, but Doug, you know, what a difference a week makes, man. I know it's Boston College, but if you're a Virginia Tech fan, 49-0 win. I mean, it's the first shutout they've had in what was it 4 years? I think we looked up 4 years ago they had a shutout. So it's
like
been a while.
2012. Yeah.
I remember my first year here, 2012. They had they shut out Bowling Green. I think that was their only one they've had since I've been here. So it's been a while. So they get a big goose egg up there, 49-0. I guess just kind of overall, Doug, what were some of your thoughts on what you saw on Saturday?
Yeah, it was probably the best Virginia Tech game in 3 or 4 years. I mean, that was a total domination in all three phases. Just offensively, defensively, special teams got involved. I mean, that was quite a performance. That's coming off. Tennessee game where they turned it over and had a bunch of penalties, and then, people were giving Boston College a lot of respect for their defense and all that, and it wasn't even close.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I mean, Georgia Tech, I think is not quite what they used to be. I still think they're going to be better than last year. They were 3-9 last year, but I don't know how much of that was jet lag that they were able to, Boston College's defense there, and UMass, you could probably throw that one out. I know, they're going up against they went up against the Fighting Andrew Fords over in up in Foxborough. They put it at the Patriot Stadium, but I don't think we can look too much into that game. So yeah, I completely agree, and this was a complete dominant performance. A couple of things here and there, but not much. But that being said, Doug, because BC is BC, we talked about who they played. How much of an accurate measuring stick is this? I mean, obviously they're not going to be scoring 49 points every time, but how much of a measuring stick is this? What can you really take away from Virginia Tech and how they played?
Yeah, I think you can take quite a bit. I mean, Boston College is, a conference opponent. They're probably the worst team in the conference. But they do have a strong defense. Going back to last year, really, and I think the offense in particular is what you really have to be impressed with. I mean, Evans really taking care of the ball and 4 or 5 touchdowns. I think 49 points really, no matter who you play, but particularly against a conference opponent, 49 points is pretty strong offensive performance.
So you talked about Gerard Evans, and he had a pretty good game against Liberty in the opener, and I thought played pretty well overall against Tennessee at Bristol. Just obviously had some mistakes here and there, but is he playing kind of where we thought he would be, and maybe where he should be playing right now?
Yeah, I think he's exactly what people expected and what Justin Fuente wanted when he decided to go get him and get his commitment. But I mean, he's taking good care of the ball for the most part, aside from those Tennessee fumbles. But I just think, that's whatever his line was. On Saturday was pretty much the ideal performance that you would want in terms of him getting rid of the ball, moving the offense up and down. I mean, pretty efficient in the red zone. I think they were 5 for 5 scoring in the red zone. So I mean, I think he's exactly where everyone wanted him to be and expected him to be.
Yeah, I think, you know, you and I have talked, Doug. I feel like from the moment that he made his commitment to Virginia Tech, we kind of knew he was going to be the guy. They played it up like there was a competition. It just makes me wonder how much of a competition it really was. I think there's absolutely no doubt he's the guy now. If there was any doubt after the first 2 weeks, I don't think there should be any doubt now. 16 of 23 passing, 253 yards, 5 touchdowns. Pretty good line overall. I will have to say, Doug, he's got to give at least a couple of those. He needs to dap up Isaiah Ford a little bit. I don't know if you saw that second touchdown catch that he had, but holy crap. I mean, that was unbelievable. Double coverage, back of the end zone. Not only does he fend those guys off to make the catch, but awareness, athleticism, he kept the foot in bounds. I mean, that was an unbelievable catch he made.
Yeah, it definitely helps Evans that he's got one of the best receivers in the country making plays like that. I mean, he's pretty unbelievable, and I think he's closing in on some records that'll start falling here soon.
Well, and I mean, you know, the first thing I thought too was, yeah, that's why it's plays like that that have him at least in the discussion to be a first-round pick. I don't know if he's going to get that high up the board. I think he's probably a second-round pick still right now, but it's those kind of plays. You see how good he can be, and you're like, wow, he actually has a chance to be a first-round pick.
Yeah, I think I don't know if he's gonna, you know, blow anybody away at the combine or with his 40 time or whatever, but yeah, I think he's definitely first or second round, probably later in the first if he's gonna go that early. But we'll see how his workouts and, you know, that 40 time affects him, because, you know, those teams fall in love with the 4.3 track stars, and I don't think he's that guy, but he's very, very talented.
No, he's not a 4.3 track guy, but, you know, 4 catches, 91 yards. I know he had a little bit of an off game against Tennessee. I wasn't worried about him. I mean, these guys. I mean, that shows what kind of level he's at. He's almost like his value to Virginia Tech. I don't know if I want to say it's Antonio Brown at the Steelers level, but it's like it's a disappointment when he doesn't have at least a touchdown or two or 100 yards. You know, he didn't get 100 yards, but it's almost that point where he has to come up big every time. Of course, they did get Bucky Hodges involved early. Cam Phillips had a couple of big catches, had that one for 36 yards. I tell you, I was a little surprised to see C.J. Carroll get mixed in there. Were you surprised by that at all?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we talked, you know, all preseason, all offseason about how Tech needs some wide receivers besides Ford, Phillips, and Bucky, and Carroll's one of those guys that kind of fills a specific role as a slot guy, and, you know, you're never gonna send him on fly routes going one-on-one against people, but yeah, I mean, he fits that role, and Justin Fuente and Brad Cornelson's offense, that's a key position to have, and you know, I think he's done a good job of working his way into the rotation.
So, as far as the running back rotation, Doug, I mean, the news came out on Thursday night. Who knows when it actually happened, but Deshaun McCleese is out the rest of the season. He did tell me it's a left shoulder injury. He didn't want to get too specific on what happened, but it's enough where he's out the season. So I don't know if he's torn something in that left shoulder. I'd have to think he's probably torn something off, maybe a rotator cuff or I don't know what. But anyway, well, I guess first of all, let's talk about that. I mean, how big of a loss is Deshaun McCleese? I know he obviously hadn't really gotten any playing time yet, but yeah, I think that's a guy who probably could have brought you something on offense. How big of a loss is he the rest of the season?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't have a huge role, but he was going to, you know, play. He was kind of that third tailback behind McMillan and Rogers. So, I mean, I don't think his injury and his loss is, you know, huge by any stretch. I mean, Virginia Tech has, I think, after this week, I think they got probably 4 running backs when you factor in Marshawn Williams and McKenzie. So, I mean, he was going to be a threat out of the backfield and all that, but I mean, I think Tech has plenty of horses to replace him.
Yeah, so Marshawn Williams obviously was suspended the first 2 games. If you guys, I don't want to put out here since this is free, but if you guys have any question on why Marshawn was suspended the first 2 games, you can check that out on our message board. We've posted a few times about that in War Rooms. I know I had an update about him last week. So really it was kind of up in the air still if he was even going to play this last weekend. He did play against Boston College, 15 carries. So is he the clear number 2? Is this a case where he's going to be splitting carries with Trayvon? How does Marshawn Williams figure in? And I guess what did you think about how he played against BC?
It was good to see him, back out on the field. I mean, 2 years ago against Ohio State, I mean, he looked like he was gonna have a pretty good career at Virginia Tech, and then obviously the knee injuries kind of derailed that for him. But I mean, he's just another. It's interesting. They have, I don't think they're ever going to have one workhorse guy getting 25, 30 carries, but between McMillan and Williams and Rogers, and then I guess you can factor in McKenzie, but he didn't play much at all against Boston College. I think you're going to see a lot of 10 to 15 carries for all those guys. I think McMillan's still probably technically your starter, but you could go probably with any of those and call them the starter, whether it's Rogers or Williams, and they all kind of do a little bit different. I mean, McMillan's more of a kind of a prototypical balanced running back, and then Rogers is that funky fullback who can be a threat out of it. Yeah, I mean, he's a runner, he's a fullback, but we're playing him at running back, and he's a threat out of the backfield. And then Williams is your big power guy. So it'll be interesting to see how the rotation develops going forward.
Yeah, I do like funky fullback, Doug. That's a good description there. Yeah, but
I don't know how else to describe what he. I mean, like 5'8", 240. 20,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's by far probably the least athletic guy just about every time out on the field, but, man, he gets the most out of every little bit he's got. But I'd say one thing I noticed, Doug, with Marshawn is, and that's just how his game is, but to me it's an indicator of where he is health-wise, because, obviously he had, it was other issues why he didn't play the first couple of games, but like you mentioned, he's had some knee injuries and torn ACL, so seeing him power his way to 81 yards, I mean, none of those yards came easy. I mean, every single run, 15 times, I think every single one was just, he's like a little bowling ball bouncing off guys. I mean, he had to work for every single yard he got, Marshawn Williams.
Yeah, he's not going to shy away from any contact. I think he probably seeks it out more than anything, and that's part of his. That's kind of his game. He likes to try and run people over and break tackles, and that can be good. That can be a weapon, as teams kind of wear down. I think you saw that against Boston College. Just by the end of the game, he's just running through arm tackles and stuff. So I think that's big.
Yeah, so it will be interesting to see. I mean, obviously, McMillan, he came back, but he got a little banged up. Took a really good shot early, in the first half there. Like I said, he came back, but I think there was no reason to kind of have him in there taking those kind of poundings. Why not let Marshawn, since he obviously is healthy enough to go take those poundings, to that himself. Greg Stroman, I don't know. I feel like he's starting to get there too, Doug. I don't know if you've noticed, but it seems to me like he had the one big return. He cut it. He went left, cut back to the right. Still not quite north-south guy yet, but I feel like he's starting to get it a little more on how to time these things and when to go east-west.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely see flashes of him being a pretty elite return guy, but
I feel like he's going to break one sometime.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't really do much last year until the bowl game, really, and then as long as he doesn't fumble the ball, then I think he's going to be fine.
Yeah, and honestly, I was going to talk about that to start, and we kind of got talking about some other areas of the team and stuff from Saturday, but fumbles. I mean, that was the story from the first two games. You go from 10 fumbles to 0 fumbles in this, and honestly, a fumble by Boston College is what set the whole thing going. They fumble on their first drive of the game. Virginia Tech turned that into a touchdown. So I know it's only one game, but do you feel better about it? I mean, have they finally got this fumble thing kind of licked?
Yeah, it seems like it after one game, but I mean, you can never be sure. And then and then one key fumble is going to, completely change the season again. So, I mean, they obviously worked on it a lot since the Tennessee game and made it a point of emphasis and all that. And, we talked about it a little bit last week that, that's really, you can't, you got to hold on to the ball, and that's really all you can say, So, I don't know. We'll see going forward if it continues. But, I mean, 2016 is the year of the fumble so far.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to read into it too much again, be it one game, but I just feel like that had to be a good omen that they don't fumble, and then what gets everything going for Virginia Tech's way was a fumble by Boston College that Matupuaka picked up early in the first quarter. So, I don't know. Am I reading too much into that?
That's kind of, a weird coincidence. I mean, last week against Tennessee, they're up 14-0, and then that ill-timed snap fumble, whatever you want to call it, completely changes the game. And then, after a week of practice, and I'm sure they talked about it constantly, and then just an example of, how crucial ball control and ball security and all that can be.
Right. So, and then one of the other things, Doug, and we're talking about it here later on in the podcast here, so obviously it wasn't that big of a deal, but we talked about all week. At least this was part of the hype towards the game. Is Scott Leffler was coming back, and I had a chance to talk to Lefty there for a few minutes before the game, before he really got into drills and everything. But I think he's got his work cut out for him, at least right now. He might have them improved a little bit, but I guess we overblew that a little bit, huh?
Yeah, not the return he was looking for, I'm sure. But Boston College is so low on talent for the last couple years on offense. I mean, I don't know how much you can do. He did the whole recruit a graduate transfer quarterback thing, and but I mean they still don't have. Yeah, I mean, they just like he did with Brewer, and I just don't think they have enough talent, at running back and wide receiver and all that to make a difference. Although I'm sure he would have liked to score at least 3 or 6 or 7 points or something.
Well, and John Hilliman's still a good running back. He's just got no help. I know he had that big run against Georgia Tech, and I mean he's good enough. He's going to get a run or two in there, but.
I mean, they had, 9 3-and-outs? What was it? 10 3-and-outs? I mean, I'm sure Bud Foster was pretty pumped.
Yeah, Bud talked about the, just getting that donut on the scoreboard. And, obviously, we talked a lot of that for, Boston College being shut out was because they don't have a lot, but how much of that goes to Virginia Tech's defense?
I mean, I think a lot of it. You still got to keep them off the board, and I mean, 10 3-and-outs. Even if Boston College was really good, I mean, that's pretty impressive to get off the field that quickly and that often. And I mean, I think it was a pretty total team effort, and for a home game, where they've kind of struggled here in the last recent years, and you haven't really had that vaunted Virginia Tech defense that everybody talks about for a couple years. I think it was probably good for them to kind of to get that swagger back, and we'll see if they can keep it going forward.
Yeah, so again, only one game, but I think we saw a lot of good things. Were there any negatives? Did you see any really major negatives? I know even the one turnover they had was a tip pass that Isaiah Ford probably should have had. He poked it up in the air, and Boston College happened to get it. But were there really any negatives out of this?
I think it would be hard pressed to find a negative at 49-0.
I know we're nitpicking a little bit, but we got. I
guess
there's something I overlooked, or
I don't know. I'm sure Trayvon McMillan thinks there's a negative from that play where he got destroyed. Somebody missed a block there. He could probably play out one, but I mean 49-0, and that was a pretty complete performance all around.
Yeah, I thought so too. And even they bring in Brendan Motley, and he even gets a touchdown late for good measure. So
anytime Jack Quick plays, I mean that's a pretty good sign.
Hey, Deep Run's finest, Doug. He's doing
Hey,
proud.
a Wildcat alum right there.
Yeah, these Deep Run guys. It's not just the Deep Run pipeline with that we've been working with here at the VT Zone. It's also with Virginia Tech. So
Yeah,
Deep Run guys showing out.
that's true. But yeah, I mean, anytime you can play 3 quarterbacks and not have any of them be injured, that's a really good sign.
All right. Well, Doug, we talked about it here before we started. Got East Carolina up next week, and then a very quick bye week. So it'll be kind of a weird timing bye week. Usually they get that bye week almost right in the middle of the season. And it's very well timed, and I don't know. They may have something this week. They may be glad they had that bye week when they do. But anyway, you get one more game, home game with East Carolina. East Carolina's kind of struggled a little bit. I don't know. They're always kind of a pesky team. They're 2-1, so I say they've struggled, but they haven't really. They did get a good win over NC State 2 weeks ago. Lost this past weekend in South Carolina. I don't know. What are you looking to see out of this game on Saturday? Obviously, it's going to be a little better competition, I think, than Boston College was, but from a Virginia Tech standpoint, what are you looking to see out of this next weekend?
I mean, you want to see them just, take care of business. And, EC is a good program, and they got good players and all that. But if Virginia Tech wants to get back to where they were, winning ACC championships, EC is a team that they got to beat. So, I think it's probably going to be a close game. They beat NC State by 3, I think it was, and then lost out of 5. They're going to hang around, but it's going to be about taking care of the ball and making those crucial plays there in the third quarter. And I think that could be good. This is pretty much the last non-conference game of the year, unless you count Notre Dame. But
I count Notre Dame.
It'll be
you
good.
Count that as ACC game?
Well, I mean, it's kind of out there in November. This is the last chance for them to kind of test anything out before you really start getting into the meat of the ACC schedule. So, I think you're probably not going to see the dominating performance that you saw against Boston College, but I think you should still expect a win, especially coming off a 49-0 win.
Yeah. Well, hopefully East Carolina doesn't pull out somebody we've never heard of or who's played very little, who just runs all over them like happened last year.
They need to scout the entire quarterback depth chart, make sure that there are no running quarterbacks.
Oh my God, the running quarterbacks it's unbelievable.
We'll see. Who is it? The same guy? ECU's quarterback?
Well, he's still there. Yeah, James Summers is still there, but it has not been Summers who has been the one that started. I looked it up here to say Philip Nelson, who I think he played. I don't know if he played. He's a senior.
Can he run at all?
I don't. Well, Summers may. Even though he hasn't played much the first 3 games, he may be the guy this game because of what he did last year against Tech. So
yeah, they might dust him off.
I wouldn't put it past him to bring him out. So it'll be interesting to see if Summers is the guy who plays at quarterback. But I tell you, Doug, recruiting wise, a very big weekend this last week. Anybody who kind of kept up on our premium board, we had a huge list of guys. We actually updated that last night. Had a few guys that showed up that we weren't sure about. But pretty much everybody who we thought was going to be there showed up, including the 2 big official visitors. So it seems to me, Doug, like they, as far as recruiting, a pretty good game to get a big group of recruits there to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall, the entire weekend, that's about how you draw it up in terms of, a beautiful weather Saturday afternoon, not a noon start, and then 49-0. I think that was probably the best kind of recruiting atmosphere you could ask for.
I feel like it. I mean, it was, I think 60,000 was official attendance, so obviously a little short of full, but you also have to factor in, if you looked at the visitors section, that Boston College section was not very full. They did not travel that well, so I think that attributed some.
they don't really travel to their home games either.
No,
So.
which is a shame because I mean I've been to that stadium now twice. For the last 2 times Virginia Tech has been up there, and I like that stadium. I mean, I think I like just the Boston trip because we've got to see Celtics a couple times, but it's a nice little stadium. It's a it's surrounded by neighborhood and it's all residential, and it's kind of a
cute
shame
little
that they don't
stadium.
do better.
Yeah, it's a cute little stadium, but they're in the Boston sports scene, so.
Yeah, they get kind of lost unless they're, since Matt Ryan left, I don't think they've been too relevant in the Boston sports scene. I think they got some attention that couple of seasons there, but probably not much since then. But recruiting wise, I mean, we'll have more updates all during the week. I mean, we're not going to be able to catch up with every single guy. There just was too many of them. But between our scout team, I know we're going to have Brian Doan and Michael Clark helping us out with a few. I did talk to Donovan Johnson Sunday night. So I hope you guys enjoyed the insider post on him. And we got more. Harrison Hand was busy traveling home last night. Wasn't really up to talking. So we'll have more on him from Brian Doan. Hopefully anytime here today on Monday. But yeah, lots of guys, lots of stuff to be excited about. We weren't expecting any commitments, so you can't say, it was an unsuccessful weekend because it wasn't a commitment. To get these guys, there's a lot of underclassmen here I think was really big. Doug Nestor, 2019 kid, I think it's absolutely huge to get that kid out. I like where they stand with him. Big 4-star guy from Huntington, West Virginia. A long way to go with guys like him. 2018 guys, he had a few there. And even on the basketball side, I mean, this coming weekend is a big-time weekend with at least 2 big-time targets who we've been talking about for weeks on the message boards, both still coming. We'll have to wait and see if there's any football official visitors this weekend. I'm not sure. There may be 1 or 2 that come in. We'll have lots of stuff on that, obviously, this week. But yeah, with the 2 officials, I think there was lots to be happy with. I mean, both of them I know we're going to take other visits elsewhere, so may not have any decision for a while, but I think you had to like what they were able to see and do, and everything they got to take in on these visits. Pretty good weekend to have those guys in town. So.
I think probably a pretty big one next weekend, too. I mean, that's the last home game for 6 weeks or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's homecoming. Miami is the next home game on the 20th. It's the way the schedule worked out, but it is unfortunate, Doug. It does kind of suck for Virginia Tech recruiting. They're going to get some guys for that Miami game, but, unless somebody's got a bye week or they're close, they're not going to miss too much time in driving. You're not going to get a ton of visitors for that Miami game. But obviously, Miami, Thursdays are always tough to get people. They're tough. You get that national spotlight game. I know fans love having a Thursday night home game, but yeah, recruiting kind of sucks. You're not getting too many guys coming in for that one. And I'm kind of a tangent, I guess, but I don't know how much national spotlight Thursday games have anymore with the NFL claiming Thursday night now. Yeah, that's true.
Back in the past, it was great. I mean, it was the only football game on really anywhere, and you'd get some good matchups. But I just don't know how big the spotlight is when the NFL claims that night of the week.
I do kind of wonder that, Doug. 'Cause I'll be honest, like these last 2 weeks, I've watched the Thursday night NFL game. I haven't even paid attention to the college game. And Houston was playing last weekend. I mean, that was a pretty good game going into the fourth quarter. But yeah, I don't even pay attention to it hardly.
Yeah, it's kind of a unique game to play on a Thursday night, but I think if you had the choice. Yeah, I think if you had the choice now, you'd want 3:30 on Saturday as opposed to. I mean, it's just tough. It's not the big TV spotlight anymore, and it's tough to travel, and people got to miss 2 days of work basically, or you could just put it on Saturday and have a nice weekend. Yeah.
Well, and honestly, Doug, you were talking about a kind of a unique experience, or at least what it used to be. I don't know if anybody got a chance to. I felt pretty passionate about this one. I wrote a column last week about where the ACC championship game should be. Obviously, that's new since we had our last podcast. about the ACC moving all their NCAA and then ACC following suit, moving all their events this coming school year out of the state of North Carolina. So obviously they're looking for a new home for ACC championship game. I think it should be Bristol, is my thought. Doug, I don't know. What do you think? It's probably, it's not going to be. It's probably going to be Orlando, but where should it be? Where should it be, and where do you think it's going to be?
Bristol would be cool, but I think that stadium's just too big to put, a game where you're not going to know the teams until a week or two before. DC makes a lot of sense. FedEx would be cool, but I also think that stadium's too big. I mean, you can't really. I mean, if like Wake Forest or if somebody besides Florida State, Clemson, or Virginia Tech, those are the only three teams that could come close to filling. I guess Louisville too, filling FedEx Field. So you're going to hold a conference championship game with 30,000 empty seats. Not a great look for the conference, I don't think. So I think you're going to
make it though.
Yeah, but I mean, just like anybody besides Virginia Tech, Florida State, or Clemson, you don't have that fan support there. I think you stick it in Florida. You hope Florida State makes it so you can fill it, and then obviously I think the weather is a little more cooperative in Florida in December than DC or anywhere else.
Well, but even after this weekend, Doug, I don't. Florida State's not looking real like a great shot anymore to make the championship game. So
that's true. They got beat pretty badly.
It worked.
That Louisville quarterback is the real deal.
Yeah, I mean, they still got to. I mean, and Louisville still has to play Clemson at Houston later in the season. So still,
that Houston game could be. Yeah, that Houston game could be wild.
Yeah, we could be having two top 5 teams that are playing for a playoff spot. Yeah,
that's what it would be. I mean, that'd be. I assume Houston is rooting hard for Louisville the rest of the year just to get get a marquee win, because that's what they're going to need if there's a 4th or a 5th team, competing. So, but
well, my thought was Bristol.
That was pretty wild yesterday.
I still want Bristol just because they already have the field down. I mean, if the field wasn't already down, if they didn't just play a game there and already have a little preparedness for it, it wouldn't even be on the table. But just because the timing of it, having a field already there, I feel even if they can even come close to putting in half of those seats, there's got to be some appeal for fans to be at Bristol and who wasn't there for that first game, I think, to see a game there. So I don't know. I mean, you gotta think even half of that stadium is still is bigger than Charlotte.
Yeah, you could cut. I guess you could not sell any tickets behind the end zones, and just have sell seats from the back of the end zone to the other back of the end zone, like that 110 yards or whatever.
Yeah,
and that's still probably 90,000 seats or something.
Yeah, it's unreal. Yeah, I mean, you've seen it firsthand. You know what it is. So, unreal. I mean, I don't think Bristol's going to get it. I just think it makes sense. I'd love to see it happen, but I don't know. I thought it made sense, but it'll be interesting to see. To me, I think FedEx is still the better option. I know they're going to. They've already tried it in Florida. It didn't work. I mean, they had the first game was well attended, and then they had 4 not so well attended games. That last game was like 40,000. Before they moved to Charlotte. So I don't think it's real smart to get back to Florida.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Orlando's posturing for it because, that was like the first name mentioned by anybody. So I'm sure there's some leakage going on, posturing for the game or whatnot. And they've got that they just built that new stadium, right?
Well, they renovated. It was the old Citrus Bowl, but they completely redid it.
Yeah, where Tech played Rutgers, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But that was before they renovated, and the place was a dump.
It's still not in a great area of town, but they've at least redone the stadium, and it's much nicer than it was.
Yeah, I mean, I think Orlando is probably, from what it seems like, is the heavy leader in the clubhouse. But We'll see. I guess they got to announce that soon, though.
Yeah, it should be announced any time. I would think sometime this week at the latest. But Doug,
I guess they might have been waiting for the Florida State Clemson game so they could pick the right location based on who wins that game. But Louisville ruined that.
yeah, that's kind of taken some of the appeal off that Clemson Florida State game. The Clemson Louisville game obviously is the appealing one now. That's the one that's going to be two top 5 teams at least if
that's in 2
both
weeks,
of them win this
I think.
week. Yeah, it's not this coming weekend, but next weekend. If they can both win, I think game day would be at Clemson here in 2 weeks. So
we'll see if the ACC can wrestle one of those primetime slots away from the SEC for a week.
Yeah. Well, I would say that game's looking at like the 8:00 game that weekend, and game day would probably be there. But it'll be interesting. They both got to win this weekend. So, Doug, before we close it out, man, let's get to shout outs. You know it was coming, and obviously you don't have to get to distract you here. So
yeah.
Shouting out.
Oh man. You can go first.
Okay. Well, I don't want to overshadow you or anything here, Doug. But I got to give mine to. I thought about the Louisville. We've already talked about Louisville. I don't want to shout out another ACC team. So I got to give mine to Christy Castlin. They Virginia Tech honored her during, this was second quarter on Saturday during the game. Pretty cool moment. She was wearing her bronze medal from the Olympics. Of course, if you might have forgot, she was part of the group from the U.S. and track and field. I can't remember what event that was. Hurdles, I think it was, but they won. Yeah. They swept the podium, and she got bronze. I mean, just edged out for getting gold and silver, but still pretty cool. Somebody from Virginia Tech getting an Olympic medal. It was really neat. I mean, everybody gave her a standing ovation, and I thought it was pretty cool for her to be recognized like that.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can get an Olympian back, that's pretty cool.
So, have you thought about your shout out now, Doug?
Oh, I'm gonna shout out myself.
Really? You're not going with Bruce Smith?
No. I mean, I guess he did have his number retired. That's pretty cool. Although they played awful.
I was like, don't
anyway,
skip and shout out yourself.
I was going to shout out myself because I made the shrewd decision to sit Andrew Luck in fantasy this week. So I know nobody likes to hear other people talk about their fantasy teams, but that was a tough decision. I put a lot of thought into it, and came out on top. So that was good.
Oh, congratulations! Well, I'm glad your fantasy team gets a shout out over NFL Hall of Famer.
He can get my second shout out. We'll give it to Bruce.
All right. Well, it's good to see you're still thinking of him, Doug.
Yeah, loyal listener Bruce Smith.
That's true. He's not giving you any fantasy points anymore, so I guess Bruce was around as fantasy was getting started. So I guess you could have had Bruce in your fantasy team 15 years ago when he was with the Redskins, kind of winding down his career.
Yeah, if you're into individual defensive players and that stuff.
Well, I've got him in my league, so I guess I could have had him.
You got Bruce Smith?
Well, no, I've got individual defensive players in my league.
Oh, I gotcha.
No, I don't have Bruce Smith, although I still think he could, put the pads on and take on anybody, pretty much anybody. He looks like he could play right now still.
Yeah, you see a third and long, you might see Bruce putting the pads back on.
Yeah, so
I don't think he'd be especially great, stopping the run, but
no,
you might get one more sack out of him.
Maybe even just to have sacks 30 years apart here would be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
As far as Virginia Tech goes, but well, Doug, I think we made it through. I know it's not quite the same when we don't have Skip on here. I hope we can get him back next week. But we made it through and got East Carolina this week. I know Kelly will be helping me again for that one. She'll be up in the press box. Of course, Doug's going to have all his in-depth previews. His multimedia primer I still think is the best thing out there. You're not going to find much more in-depth than that, and obviously the help of video is always a good thing. Got pretty good library of videos through YouTube. So shout out to YouTube also, right, Doug?
Our site sponsor, YouTube.
Well, we've got
it's an up and coming website. You guys should check it out.
Right, up and coming. If you haven't heard of it, check out YouTube.
Yeah.
Doug Bowman highly recommends it. So.
Yep.
For Doug Bowman, I'm Jason Stamm. Thank you for checking us out this week. And again, we've got tons of coverage, catching up with all these recruits and everybody over the next few days, really even into next week. So lots coming. Thanks for checking us out this week, and we'll see you guys back here on the podcast next week.